But as we touched before, the automation only gets you so far. It's really a lot about people. So what are you going to do for data governance? How do you get started besides deploying these tools? What are the things that you need to do for your client or within your company? Well, the first thing you do is a data governance maturity model. And there are a few of these out there. We recommend the Stanford one. It's free, it's simple to use. And why are you doing this? Well, you are figuring out where you are. The maturity model will tell you as an organization how mature you are in data governance. What do you have in place now? What are you doing right? What needs improvement? And it also gives you an ability to measure, because we only improve the things we measure. And here's an example. I mean, this is just one matrix of many that you work through in the Stanford model. But it'll state things like, people awareness. What awareness do people have about their role within a data governance program, right? So the maturity model, you'll go and answer these questions, and it'll give you a grade, and then it'll tell you how you move forward from there. Second big thing you can do, establish data stewards. It's a people problem, and you start by assigning accountability and ownership. Get people involved. Say, these tables, these databases, you own them. These databases, you own them, right? And until you have that accountability and that authority, the human problem is never going to be fixed. And from there, the person is like, well, where do I go to understand the semantics? How do I resolve semantic ambiguity? What was really meant by this? What should it be? That's the person you go to. You don't get anywhere unless you have ownership by data stewards. Next one is data dictionary. The tools that we have so far in open source only get so far. We're hoping to contribute and get these evolved more. But to automate this, there's a lot of automation that can be done here, but this is critical. You've got to have your metadata stored in one place. Now, as I talked about, the Atlas helps you with this for the things that Atlas plugs into, but Atlas doesn't have a lot of plugins yet for things like legacy databases that you may be coming from. But as open source goes, it evolves. But you need this. You need to know the metadata, the structure, the relationship to other data, the origin, format, and use. Unless you have a data dictionary, unless you have inventory, you're only going to go so far. And then there's another thing that you can do, which is create a data glossary. And what this is focused on is not the physical form of the data, but the semantics. And you're saying, where do we have several different interpretations of the same thing? Like the salary example, for instance. And you can probably think of others within your organization. And conversely, where do we have a number of different terms that mean the same thing? That can be just as confusing. Is it a department? Is it a division? Is it a team? So notice I'm not saying that you come up with one term. That's going to be impossible. Start with just identifying the terms that are in use. Don't try to enforce a single term at this phase of your, if you're just getting started. And then finally, master data management. Once you've done all the other things, you can start tackling master data management, which means you are going to get real solid ownership of the nouns. You're going to centralize the nouns that you're using across the enterprise. That there'll be one source of truth for those nouns. Things like customers, employees, vendors, locations, accounts, products. It's surprising how hard this really is within a company to establish a single source of truth of what is an employee, or what is an account, or what is a customer. And we're talking just within one company. We're not talking about when a company goes through a merger. So, how do you get started with data governance? Focus on these things first, right? Data governance maturity model, establish data stewards, create your data dictionary, compile your data glossary, and put in place master data management, and of course, deploy those open source tools. So, real quick on the future of data governance. And then real quick. The first thing that I'm going to predict with data governance is that we're going to see a lot less bureaucracy and a lot more automation. If you go look at the literature for data governance, it is overwhelming. Some very bored people have spent a lot of time creating very, very thick books on this stuff. It's almost as if they don't want people to do it, right? It's intimidating. Don't let it intimidate you. Focus on basics, focus on the business objectives. It only needs to be as complicated as you make it. And I most certainly wouldn't create a whole new division of data governance within the corporation, right? That's just not, more bureaucracy is not the answer, right? The more automation is. And I think the open source tools are going to help break that, that bureaucracy and start distributing the responsibility, because the automation tools allow us to work peer-to-peer and cooperate. The second thing that I see with that is the predominance of graph databases. Graph databases are finally coming into their own. I think with Titan, now called Janus, you will start seeing graph databases at a big data scale. But metadata is very graph-oriented. No matter how tabular the source of the data is, the metadata is itself graph. As you saw, all that, the visualization of lineage, et cetera, was all graphs. So we need to treat metadata by its nature, which is graph in nature. Open source, I listed earlier very quickly several companies that have very expensive packages that handle data governance, which I've never seen deployed fully to their full extent, to the full visual envisioned within any enterprise. And I think the expensiveness and the proprietariness go hand in hand with the bureaucracy that was created in the past to solve this. And I think we will now start seeing an open source movement in data governance and a more democratization of data governance, and we'll finally see the impact of it. And then finally, machine learning. The amount of data is only going to grow and grow. And those directed acyclical graphs of data lineage are only going to get longer and longer and more complex as we reach further and further towards the source, as we go into the Internet of Things and smart things and all the things producing data and all of us trying to make sense of it. There is no way that humans are going to be able to go and tag everything that needs to be tagged. So what's going to have to happen is the next step beyond this, as we get more democratized, is that we will tag in order to teach the machines how to tag. That's where the tools have to go in the next iteration. But for now, we're tagging it. It's better than nothing, and we need to move forward. So that's that was a lot of ground to cover. I hope I can see I put a couple of you to sleep. That's fine. I'm going to say it was the meal, not me. I have a few minutes for questions. Any questions on anything that I touched going through this at about 90 miles an hour? Yes?
Any successful stories of your experience where this was implemented and changed everything successfully?
Yes, and I have to be careful about the clients that we talk about. Changed everything? No. Made life better? Yes. We were working with a client that pharmaceutical company that was getting ready to move into big data and to get in predictive analytics and start becoming a data-driven enterprise on the sales side. So they got their house in order. They put in their data governance, they went and did their audits, they got their stuff together. About the time they were ready to move forward, they acquired another company. So the parent company acquired another company and said, you merge. It's not been easy. No merger between two very large organizations is very easy. But It was much easier for the company that already had their data governance in place as opposed to the other company. And so what they're going through right now is they're doing a data maturity model on the other company. They've done both, and they found the difference. So what they have to do is bring the other company up to the same maturity and then move forward. So it's kind of a mixed story, if you will. Yes?
Do you have any unsuccessful stories?
Lots of do we have any unsuccessful stories? Great question. Lots and lots. The landscape is littered with people who decided they were just going to govern everything, and they were going to create a governance department, and they were going to hire 500 people, and they were going to just lock everything down, and nothing was going to change, and everybody would know everything, and it was hell, and everybody hated them, and it died, right? So it's just the nature of the thing. It's so easy to take the term governance. Well, look at our civilizations, right? Democracies and republics in history are very rare. There's been a lot of dictatorships and totalitarianism. And I think most of the history of data governance, people have tried to be dictators and totalitarian governments, and very few have tried to set up republics that would work.